Today I saw a story about deflation and why it's bad for the economy, which is the most insidious proof that everything that we see today is completely 100% designed to make sure that you continue spending and partying with your hard-earned money. You know, one of the main reasons that people are not happy with the economy today is because of inflation. And we all know how much inflation has rocked our monthly budgets to their core and has made things that used to be affordable or things that weren't considered a luxury now a luxury and unaffordable. A lot of people think, well, wouldn't it be great if prices just fell down, right? Well, yeah, I think it would be great for basically everybody. Who wouldn't it be great for, huh? Well, there was a story that pretty much contradicts this and says, well, hang on a second, it actually wouldn't be great if prices went down. So I want to dive into this and see if there's any merit to this at all, because I'm sure that's what the vast majority of people are hoping for, including myself. I feel like deflation would actually fix a lot of the problems we have in our economy today. But the Fed and the government does not want this to happen. Now, right now, what we do have is disinflation, which just means that inflation is slowing down. We're not seeing prices rise as fast as we did over the past 3 years. They're still going up, just not at as rapid of a pace. So yeah, let's all celebrate that. But we don't want prices to keep going up at a slower rate. We want prices to start coming down so we can afford to buy a house again. People can afford to buy a car. People can afford to buy a basket of groceries for less than $500. That's what deflation is. Deflation is when prices of goods and services actually come down and not go up in price. And we haven't actually seen deflation in this country since the Great Depression, which is kind of ironic because a lot of people compare the situation that we're in right now to the Great Depression in terms of all the extremes that we see in our markets and what's happening with the divide between the rich and the poor, etc. There's a lot of things that mirror the Great Depression. So according to the Bank of England and to the Bank of Spain, they say that, deflation can be in fact a highly damaging thing to the economy. Well, how is that? Because they say that falling prices tend to discourage consumers from spending. Why buy now, after all, if you can purchase what you want, cars, furniture, appliances, vacations, at a lower price later? And this has been my argument that if everybody would just do this right now, we could cause our own bout of deflation in this economy, particularly with housing, like we always talk about. If everybody would just stop buying houses, nobody buys, okay, for the next 6 months or a year, 0 home purchases, okay, that would cause deflation in home prices because you would see inventory continue to stack up but not get sold. And anybody who's desperate to sell will be starting to lower their price, probably by a wide margin, in order to get it sold.
Here we have a house for sale for almost $3.4 million, and you guessed it, it's another flipperoo. They bought it back in 2022 for $1.235 million, originally listed at $3.8 million at the beginning of 2024. No hits yet. Now they're down to 3.7. I think they still have a long ways to go to get this property sold. And their property tax bill is currently $25,000 a year. Who knows what the insurance is?
So we actually have the power to cause our own deflation. But there's some reasons why the government and the Fed don't want this. But that is because that the health of our economy depends on steady consumer purchases. So make sure you go out there and be a good American, a good citizen, and keep on spending your hard-earned money. That's the only way the rest of us are going to be able to live. In fact, 70% of our entire economy is based solely on that. Just people buying and spending money, guys. So if people just stop doing that, our 70% of our GDP would disappear overnight. And why is that? It's because we don't make anything here in our country anymore. We don't have goods or services that we can export to the rest of the world for the most part, and that makes us vulnerable in that sense, So our only power is to keep spending. And what has allowed that to happen for decades now has been debt. Ever since this country went off the gold standard, we have been on a huge debt accumulating spree. So they say that if consumers were to pull back in mass to wait for lower prices, businesses would face intense pressure to cut prices even more to try to jumpstart sales. So just like I said with real estate, this would apply to all businesses. Now in reality, it would be impossible for people to stop spending money or stop buying houses, right? But one thing that is possible is for people to scale back intentionally on a large scale. So for example, if you have a lot of people that already own a house, already have a lot of things they need in life, they could severely pull back on the amount of money they spend in order to cause this deflation. So once again, we still have the power to influence this in our economy. It's just that we don't do it because people love spending money. They just love handing over their hard-earned paycheck each week to somebody else, apparently. But it gets worse because they say that in the meantime, employers, they might have to lay off waves of employees or cut their pay or both. Unemployed people, of course, are even less likely to spend, so prices would likely keep falling, all of which risk just triggering a deflationary spiral of price cuts, layoffs, and more price cuts and more layoffs, and on and on. Another recession could follow. So they're saying that the better alternative here is that if you keep going up to your eyeballs in debt and just keep spending money, then we'll all be okay. You know, this is how we're all able to stay rich, essentially, because we're all just borrowing on everything. We don't actually have the money for anything.
We have another house here for sale for $4.2 million, but if you think that's expensive, they started off asking almost $5 million in September of 2023. So this house has come down $800,000 in price. Talk about overshooting the market. And now they're just hanging out, waiting for an offer, and apparently it's not coming in. Their property tax bill here is about $11,500 a year because they have a homestead exemption, so that's why it's so much cheaper than the previous home. But man, $5 million down to 4.2, still can't sell the house. This is a nice property, don't get me wrong, it looks beautiful, but how many people out there really have this kind of money to spend in this economy?
And they say we can look at modern history to see what happens when you see deflation, because Japan went through this and they had to start introducing negative interest rates in their economy in 2016, and it's why the Fed has kept the US rates near zero for 7 straight years during and after the Great Recession, okay, because they're trying to prevent deflation from happening. And they also say it's bad for people who are in debt, including the US government, who we know is the biggest debtor of them all, because it makes their inflation-adjusted loans more expensive. That's one of the reasons that our government and the Fed love inflation, is because it eats away at the debt. Inflation eats away at the value of that debt. So they love inflation. They never want it to go away. Even the Fed's mandate is to make sure we have 2% inflation, not 0%, or deflation. Heaven forbid that. But here's the thing, guys. If the prices on everything started falling, and even though it might be bad for the economy at first because people were losing jobs and there'd be layoffs and things like that, life wouldn't be as expensive, so it'd be easier to get by. So you could make do with less in a sense, because you wouldn't need as much money to live like we do today. There's actually a study done on this from some of the world's economists back in 2015, and they reviewed 140 years of deflationary episodes in 38 economies across the globe, and they reached this conclusion: the correlation between falling prices and economic growth is weak and derives mostly from the Great Depression. But look what happened, guys. After we came out of the Great Depression, it was a painful couple of decades there, but after that, we came out swinging. We came out booming and, resetting the economy essentially after that. And I feel like that's what needs to happen today, because it's the only way that anything is going to come back to any semblance of normalcy moving forward. We're never going to get back to any sort of normal with anything if inflation keeps surging. And a lot of people are saying that inflation is going to continue surging because the Fed doesn't have this under control. I actually agree with that narrative that we're just going to continue to see prices spiraling upwards because things are not slowing down. One thing that I see in this economy is that the Fed has not raised interest rates high enough, because if they did, people would not be buying houses. People would not be buying cars unless they're paying cash for these things. People would not be charging money on their credit cards or anything like that, because the interest payments would be so high that it would be cost prohibitive to do so. And that's kind of like where we need to be at in order to tackle inflation. So that leads me to believe that the Fed doesn't really want to get rid of inflation. They just want to have a little bit more disinflation, which is exactly what their 2% inflation mandate is. But they look at how bad this could be for the economy, because they said, back during the Depression, we had economic output plummet by 1/3, prices sank by 25%, and the unemployment rate went from 3% to 25%. The researchers found out that the biggest economic risk came not from falling prices for goods and services, but rather from a free fall in the price of assets, stocks, bonds, and real estate. Now we're getting into the good stuff. Those collapsing assets in turn can topple banks that hold crumbling investments or made loans to struggling real estate developers and home buyers. The damaged banks may then cut off credit, the lifeblood of the broader economy. The result, a painful recession/depression. So, in case you weren't paying attention there to that last part, that sounds a lot like what's happening right now in the commercial real estate and banking crisis right now. You have dozens and dozens or hundreds of banks that are small regional banks that are loaded up with these bad commercial loans that are not going to get paid back. And we're seeing massive deflation for the price of these assets. So already this is happening even with the government and the Fed's best efforts to make this economy continue moving forward, guys. That's something that everybody needs to think about. They are trying their hardest right now to make sure we don't have deflation and the economy doesn't crash, but yet it's still not enough to save the commercial real estate market that is completely crashing right now. And that makes me think that no matter what they do with interest rates, they would have to print, far more money than we can even imagine in order to try to come out of this on the other end. And all they're going to do is make inflation spiral completely out of control, and they will then sacrifice the value of the dollar as if it's already not bad enough with that. This would be the final nail in the coffin for the US dollar, no doubt, if they chose that route. So you have to 100% understand our leaders are not looking to solve your financial problems. Their goal is to make sure you continue spending and stay in debt. And one of the easiest ways we can see this is the huge trend that we see with buy now, pay later loans, guys, because more and more people are utilizing these, and this is in addition to credit card debt, in addition to mortgages, in addition to auto loans. It's just yet another payment on top of all the payments they already have. And this is good for the economy, okay? Don't forget about that. And the worst part about it is more and more people are seeking out these buy now, pay later loans because it's the only option that they have left to get credit somehow. A lot of people have already burned through their credit cards and, are now seeking this as the last desperate attempt to have some money to buy stuff. Now, the people who are doing this the most are the age group of 35 and younger. They represent more than half of the people who are taking buy now, pay later loans at the moment. Some people are using them for daily essentials like groceries, buying alcohol, ridiculous things like that. Other people are using it for lavish vacations and just going all out. And the problem is this is not fixing anyone's financial woes. It's just adding to them because people are using this as an additional form of credit, guys. It's not like people are saying, oh no, let's put the credit cards away. Let's use buy now, pay later instead because the interest rates on the credit cards are too high. No, this is just people using buy now, pay later in addition to the credit cards. And here's the problem, guys. Like, people that fall into this trap to begin with, they keep getting enticed to fall back into it. Even people that are trying to be responsible and pay off their buy now, pay later loans, they end up getting messages after they make payments saying, oh, you paid off your bill, and they immediately get a message from the buy now, pay later app on their phone saying, here's a way to purchase more shoes on installment, or now that you've paid off your bill, you have X amount of dollars available to you in credit to go out and re-spend. Because obviously these companies are making money off these people, so their goal is to keep you in debt, just like the government and the Fed. So everybody wants your money. And they say, oh, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is finally starting to take a look at these buy now, pay later services because of some of their predatory lending practices. But in reality, that's a government agency, so what do they care? Their goal is to make sure we don't have deflation, guys. To think for a minute that the government agencies are going to have your back and care if you're in debt, I don't think so. This is just all, a smoke show to distract you and make it look like they're doing something and keep these people who work at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau employed. There's one girl, she's 39 years old, and she's got a good job. She works for an insurance company, and she has more than $9,000 in buy now, pay later debt from just making these frivolous purchases here and there that add up. okay? Because they make it so easy, and that's part of the problem with this is it's basically buying something with one click of a button. So now she's having to resort to balance transfer credit cards in order to try to get out of this debt. So you're just transferring the debt to another form of debt, and if you're irresponsible, you're just going to continue adding up more debt. It's like you can't run away from your problems, guys. They agree that transferring the debt to a 0% interest credit card and paying it off before you pay any interest is a smart move, providing that you don't spend any more money in the meantime. They say that many younger borrowers with big financial obligations like student loans find the extent of their overspending sneaks up on them with buy now, pay later, because there's basically no barriers to this. You just click a button with the app and you worry about it later when the bill comes. Similar to a credit card, but even easier. And then right away, the buy now, pay later companies are all like, well, we're better than credit card companies because at least we show you all the fees you're gonna pay up front and what the total cost of this is gonna be before you click purchase. Unlike a credit card, you can buy something just for the price that you think you're gonna pay, then end up having to pay a lot more in interest later on. So they're saying this is better than a credit card because of that. But one thing I cannot understand from people is, okay, you grew up, you're an adult now, you're over 18, and you realize that anytime you buy something without cash or using some other form of credit, whether it be credit cards or buy now, pay later, that you are going to be on the hook for this payment at some point down the road, right? Like, people understand that. But it seems like it doesn't register anymore with people with their spending habits. They just go ahead and pull the trigger anyhow and worry about it later. That seems to be how people operate their finances now. And I think a lot of this just goes back to the younger generation just not being taught about money, guys. If you have parents that are financially illiterate, there's a high probability that you're going to be financially illiterate too, because they don't teach any of this stuff in school, which they should be. They should be teaching people how to use a credit card properly, when to use a buy now, pay later loan, how to invest for their future, how to buy real estate. But instead, we get taught all this Mickey Mouse stuff that everyone's going to forget on graduation day that has no merit afterward. But I'm not surprised, because that all falls in line with the plan to keep you spending money that you don't have, because that's what this economy runs on, like we talked about earlier. So it seems like it's all more by design than you actually think. Where's the incentive for the government to get involved here and implement financial education in schools? All that would do is make people smarter and spend less money. It would cause deflation. We don't want that, remember. It's nice to talk about ideas here on YouTube and say, oh, we all have the power to change this together, and if we all could just, cut our spending by 50%, we could cause our own deflation. In a perfect world, that would work. But the problem is, we don't live in that world. That's not reality. Reality is that people are going to continue spending like crazy, way beyond their means, because that's just what people are used to now. It feels good. It's like an addiction. It's like a drug. And I get it, guys. Like, who doesn't like spending money? Everybody likes spending a little money here and there. I'm even guilty of it as well. As I get older, I am way more conscious of what I spend my money on. And I think when you get older, you also realize, what really brings you value and happiness in life and what doesn't. Buying, 10 new purses each year probably isn't going to do it once you get older, at least unless you're a shopaholic. And I don't know how people can feel good about buying stuff either, knowing that they can't actually afford it. That's another thing. Like, that's just going to cause a ton of stress in your life. You're going to be feeling this constant pressure because you have all these bills rolling in and you have to choose which ones to pay and how much, versus taking a few steps back and having a bunch of money in the bank and choosing, hey, what do I want to buy this month that I can pay cash for because I have a bunch of money saved up and I'm not eyeballs deep in debt, That's the approach I like to take on life. And I tell you what, man, if you're somebody who's in debt and you go to the other side where I'm at now and have zero debt, and just buy things that you need or really want, it will change your life. And it doesn't mean you can't have things that you want to have or you're going to be missing out or anything like that. It's just a matter of getting your priorities straight and realizing what you really enjoy spending money on and what's going to make your life more fulfilling and what doesn't. What doesn't fill that void. As a guitar player, I thought, okay, I want to have this huge guitar collection, right? But as I started buying more guitars, I have 5 guitars now, by the way, which isn't that many for people who play guitar, you know what I mean. But after buying like the 4th one and the 5th one, I realized that buying these guitars is not making me a better guitar player, and it's not really making me that much happier either. Yeah, getting a new guitar is always fun, but this isn't going to, you know, change my life in any meaningful way. I'm sure I'll still buy some more guitars in the future, but it's not like, oh my God, I have to just keep buying all this stuff, you know, in order to keep getting that dopamine hit. I don't feel that anymore. And most of the credit card debt and financial problems I had when I was younger all stem from my move here to Miami, because living here was very expensive. It was the middle of the Great Recession in 2008. I had to use my credit cards to live, essentially, until I could really get on my feet and start earning enough money to pay it all off. But it took me 10 years to get out of it after that. Once you understand that the goal is for you to continually spend your money and you learn to hang on to it, it's gonna change your life. I didn't mean for this video to get all inspirational and stuff like this, but I just feel like that's kind of the route that it took, and I rolled with it, okay? But I preach this all the time in my videos. I think everybody needs to get a grip on their finances right now more than ever because of how expensive everything is. Don't follow the herd, guys. Don't follow the trend, you know? Get out of debt, keep saving your money, invest a little bit, and you're gonna be light years ahead of most people that are following this other pattern of just let's go, let's go, let's go, buy, spend, 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 and be part of the herd and making all the people at the top rich. Try making yourself rich instead. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.